Hi, welcome if this is your first time, and welcome back if you're returning. My name is Yu Win, and I'm so happy that we get to share this time and space together. And I'm just curious what's present for you in this moment? What's alive? Hmm. It's been quite a practice for me to pause and tune in. I'm always rushing through the moments and the sensations and the experiences. And so, one of my favorite things that I've been practicing this year has been the pause. So, just going to take a moment with you here and pause and just, allow you to bring to mind anything that's showing up. Could be a sensation or a thought, maybe an emotion. And just to take a moment, tune in, recognize that it's there. And then I just wanted to share with you something I've been really excited about. And it's something that I'm actually exploring and spending a lot of time with. And maybe just the background. Um, Probably a couple of weeks ago, I had a conversation with my therapist, and it was just something that was going on, some small moment that I shared with her. But she reflected to me that, this is there have been several times that you've shared, things that have caused you to feel shame. And so I'm, just kind of curious about what's going on. And so, we delved in and we talked about some different instances. And, there was a particular one around a car and feeling embarrassed about the car that I was driving, in comparison to a peer of mine. And, just this realization that what I call society's blueprint, maybe, society's um, checklist, things that sort of mark our success or the American dream for those of us who live in the United States or are familiar with the American dream, right? There are certain things that people work towards. And I think depending on what region you live in, it's also a little bit different. So, this idea that I actually don't subscribe to most of the things on this list, it's not a blueprint that I have ever really wanted to try to accomplish. And so, I guess what was happening was I was having these moments comparing myself to peers, right? And as I age and I get older, I veer off course. I veer off of the standards or the checklist. There's a lot of items I don't check anymore. Whereas, when I was younger, like in my 20s, um, I was more on par, for lack of a better term. But, anyways, she and I, just came to this realization that even though I don't want a lot of these things in society, um, I'm still using society's blueprint to measure my success or the quality of my life or whether or not my life is well lived. And it was mind blowing. And I had to pause and I had to slow down. And I sat with her. And, she and I were just talking about how I was setting myself up for failure, right? Like, I don't desire to bear children, or I don't desire to, own multiple properties. Um, and not that those are all the things that are on the checklist. But I still judge myself on whether or not I'm accomplishing those things because people around me are, you know, getting married and having kids and buying cars and buying multiple properties. And so I have been exploring ever since then. And even before that, right? Some of the things that I was looking at and diving into was really looking at this idea of what is an extraordinary life? It's going to be particular to you. And there were some other videos that I listened to that were talking about the soul's blueprint. And so this week, I sort of was able to solidify this idea of I'm going to come up with my soul's blueprint, right? What is you win's blueprint like? And I was playing around for a couple of weeks. I was just sort of having trouble writing something down because I felt like if I wrote it down, I was going to be stuck with it, right? But I was like, we're gonna use pencil then, right? None of this is permanent, and I don't have to be stuck with these ideas. But a couple of nights ago, I had a chance to like sit down and draw it out, and I was really excited. There's just a lot of things that I'm aligned with, the kinds of things that kind of get me through the day, some of the practices that I've been doing, some of the ways that I've shifted my mindset. And so there were like 25 or 26 different items, and I was like, "Oh man, like can't remember all of those, but I want to keep them for now." Right? This is like the draft that I'm working with. And then today I decided, okay, I'm going to try to like focus on 5 of them. And like in Reiki, there are 5 precepts, similar to how there are 5 precepts in Buddhism, particularly, these precepts of like, I will restrain from killing, I will restrain from using intoxicants, right? The Reiki precepts are for today, I will not anger, for today, I will work hard. And so I was trying to use that, but I was like, well, 5 feels like too much. Can't remember 5. So I'm going to try 3. So I'm looking at this blueprint that I was able to create in a document. And I was just looking around. I was like, oh, what 3 things do I want to work on today? And even if I'm not doing all 25 right now, I actually kind of like this idea because I like to create playlists. I like the idea of, learning skills and putting them into my toolbox. So I'm not always going to use all of the tools. I'm not going to listen to all of the songs, but I get to choose and focus for that day or for that moment, for that hour. And so I really like this idea of the soul's blueprint and believe that it's gonna be a path that I follow and perhaps offer to others. And then I'm also working on my soul's goals. So that's something that's still in the works. But just, to really like tune in and pause and to think about the things that I want to accomplish and the things that I want to do, not necessarily just because everyone else is doing it, right? Like I have felt called to write. Writing is so important to me. It's a part of my day. And so, do I want to write a book? Do I want to write about my journey, my story? So I get to dream about a soul goal, um, and so it's just really exciting, especially because it's been so long since I've allowed myself to dream, and that's been something I've worked on actively for over a year now, just to allow myself permission to dream. And so dreams and goals sort of all fit into, this idea of my soul's blueprint. And so I'm curious, if this is something that you've ever thought of, if you've ever felt outside of what everyone else is doing. If you ever felt like they're trying to put you in a box that you didn't necessarily fit. And I think about the word unconventional, and I heard it in a video this morning to kind of confirm, for me, this is I'm unconventional, and it's okay. And I'm accepting that that's who I am. And from here, where do I go? So I'm just curious for you, where you are in your journey, and if you've ever had the realization that maybe what you want is different from what people around you want. Um, and even if you want what people around you want, I think even to be able to know why you want it um, makes it really powerful. So I'm not knocking the fact that there are people who want, things and it brings them joy and fulfillment and satisfaction. Um, but I'm realizing for me that I've spent so long not wanting what people want and giving myself a hard time about it. And I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want that cognitive dissonance. So it's a part of Hot Girl Era. Yes. Okay. So feel free to share thoughts in the comments or if you want to reach out to me. And in the meantime, I hope you have moments of pause where you get to tune in and just feel what you're feeling and then to be able to move on to the next. And so I will talk to you soon. Thank you for being here. And until then, take good care. All right. Bye.